You know, we've covered Jonathan Pollard. We've covered the lengths that the shit libs will go to protect their empire, the neocons, and what they will do. But Jonathan Pollard was a spy, and he went to federal prison. He should have been there until his dying day. Frankly, he should have been hung. You know, you come me all wrong. It's the wrong tone. If you want walking, I'll give you walking, stalking, chalking, fun. I hope you're enjoying this live stream. Where else would you want to be on a Saturday but right here, having a good time? I hope you're all having a good time, because now you're really going to pay for it. You see, you got me upset, and I get angry. I have to make a decision. And how do I torture you further? Here's how I torture you further.
Get why people are confused and upset. It feels like things are stalemated, that they're getting broader and more difficult. Why? Well, because what the American people want is victory. There's this bizarre notion in foreign policy that the American people are deeply worried about the immediate cost of war to the enemy. That the American people, that we can't handle the ugliness of war for even a day. That every conflict has to be totally antiseptic. And here I'm...
Antiseptic? That's the word you go with, you dumb fuck? Anybody who supports war, and I do mean any war, should have to fight in it. And I always find it interesting. You see, that's why we love Palestinian News Network. That guy is kicking ass and taking names on Capitol Hill. And he confronted a Zionist recently and asked him, do you support the war in Iran? He said, yeah, absolutely, I do. So you're going to go fight in it? And he got very offended by it. Well, little Ben's got a little bit more to say about this.
Not even talking about the American willingness to undergo casualties. No one in America wants American casualties. It's a tragedy and a horror. We do understand that war does come along with casualties, and we are willing to undergo those casualties in pursuit of an end and a victory for America.
Who in the fuck are you talking to? Honest to God. If there could be a citizen's arrest, and I've said, I know where he lives. I mean, listen, do I know where he lives technically? It's probably not hard to find. But as I've said, he lives in Boca Raton. Yes, it is as stereotypical as you could possibly imagine. He lives in a wealthy, gated, affluent Zionist Jewish community in Boca Raton. Now, with that being said, I do believe a citizen's arrest would be lovely. This is a warmonger. This is a death rattler. He does it in a different way than his doppelganger David A. Pacman does, but little Ben Shapiro does it his own way. And you know what those two lady boys have in common? They got no nuts. They're still searching for him. That's why his voice is all the way down here. It's trying to get through puberty, but it can't quite get there. He's trying to get over the top, which is why I'm convinced that he probably does paste that shit on his face. It's not even real. Or as somebody had put the joke out, maybe he's like a chia pet. Maybe it's all fertilizer. Puts it on, puts the water on, and then it starts to grow. Someday, you might be a real boy, Benny boy. Maybe. Maybe.
But as far as the idea that, for example, America, we can't hit Hager Island because the Iranian people would then be deprived of oil resources. The American people are, I should say, not particularly concerned about that. We are far more concerned with why we're there not winning. I think that what we actually ought to do is say an eye for everything. Like you touch a ship in the Strait of Hormuz and we kill the head of the IRGC, we kill Khalibaf, we kill your entire leadership class. Again, we destroy South Pars and we destroy Harg. One drone, and that's what happens. That is the way you win in the middle. By the way, that's the way you win generally.
Yeah, he's a regular military commander. This guy knows exactly what needs to be done. I know what needs to be done to him. And even though I can't be in his presence, I know enough, as we all do, that if given the opportunity, we would all like to do this to little Ben. Now, I do wonder who listens to him and thinks, yeah, this is exactly what we need. I would be curious to know what his age demographic, average age, actually is. But this is the danger in what you want to call it MAGA. You want to say that the split is between MAGA or MIGA, which is really what it is, and America First. I think that that distinction has a difference. And I do think, what do you call Christopher Walken sitting in a chair? Christopher sitting. I like running. I like swimming. I like climbing. And I like posturing. It's fun. Not nearly as fun as Russian roulette. But you take your chances. You win some, you lose some. Some lose everything, including their head. Now, if you think he's bad, and he's bad, I want to remind you all that I used to work with Sid Rosenberg many years ago when I was at WFAN. It was my first internship when I was in college. And he and I got along fine. You know, we talked. You know, he is the way he is. Then I learned a lot about him personally. And obviously he was somebody that I really wouldn't want much to do with. And this is genuinely an overcompensator if there ever was one. And you'll understand why.
It's inevitable that President Trump is going to have to do what he doesn't want to do, which is go in there with this massive all-out attack. There's no other way to stop this. There's no other way to win this war. So, again, he's trying to do the best he can. He's a very nice man. I love President Trump. He doesn't want people to die. He really doesn't. Okay, he's a nice man. But there's no other way to end this. Once you start this, Midnight Hammer was great. Epic Fury was great. Once you start this, there needs to be a finish. And the only finish is complete surrender by the Iranians. I hate to say it, but complete annihilation.
Cocks his head to the side. He's very happy, proud of what he has to say. Here's what I can tell you about Sid Rosenberg. Sidney Arthur Rosenberg. What can I tell you about him? Well, he's definitely somebody who likes to party. Yes, Saul Good is absolutely right. He's very Miami. Used to live in South Florida. Now he lives in New York. He's been a fixture on radio and TV for, I guess it's about 30 years now. He's been doing it a long time. But this is a guy who also fancies himself as, you know, a wise guy. And he hangs around with wise guys. So he naturally thinks he's one of them. He probably has never met a drug he doesn't like. I'm not going to get personal. I'm not going to, let's just say everything that you think that this guy's about, he's about it. This is a guy who is, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way of describing him. But he's a very proud Zionist Jew from Boca Raton. He's another one, another Boca Raton. This is what is kind of mass produced in that part of the United States. Thankfully, I don't live there. I lived in Delray Beach, one town over. So I ran into those types a lot. I did. Guys, we're at almost 700. Let's get over that mark. Let's hit that like button. Let's share this stream. Really appreciate you. Sid Rosenberg is somebody who is the most dangerous because he's very enamored with the idea of being relevant. Because in reality, he's a narcissistic 2 type personality. He's a fraud. He doesn't have any agency. He holds no currency. All he is a blowhard. And there's a lot of others that I've dealt with in, the media sphere over the years, but he's particularly evil because of how hard he has pushed Zionism and Israel, the devastation of the Palestinians and the Lebanese, and now the Iranians. People like this are overcompensating, whether it's because he feels the need to take PEDs, whether it's because he feels the need to tan himself like he's from the Caribbean, but he isn't. He's a very angry man. Now, when Lucas Bean, who earlier was talking about this type of MAGA or MIGA supporter, yes, Sid Rosenberg would be an example. Because unlike little Ben Shapiro, who wouldn't know a gym if it smacked him in his face like a punching bag would, it's a speed bag, by the way. Sid Rosenberg is a gym rat. He is hefty. And he thinks he's a tough guy. And he, in many ways, is the embodiment of exactly what the worst elements of MIGA represent. I don't know about that. I can't speak to that. I know he loves women. We'll leave it at that. But he fancies himself as a man about town, which is why he's half-heartedly joking about running for office like Michael Rappaport is joking about running for office. I would just love to see them do it just for the humiliation. Sid Rosenberg is also somebody who talks about assassinating Mamdani. He's one of those guys. So this should come as no surprise that he just gleefully talks about violence with no repercussion because he's chosen. We'll continue.
Well, we talked last time about this. And by the way, I agree. I love President Trump. I love his heart, I think, is really for peace. And he's always, I love that even now, this past week, he's still talking about peace and wanting to find and leaving that door open for negotiations. You say the only end is annihilation. Now, what if winning this war requires boots on the ground? I asked you that last time. That's not very popular with the American people. What is your response to that?
It's not popular with me either. Look, I'm not a parent of an Army person, a Marine person, so I'm very sensitive to that. Trust me. But look, we have the Army, we have the Marines for a reason. They're not there to shake your hand at the airport, Rachel. Okay? They're there for a reason. Last I checked, we don't have a draft in this country. So these courageous men and women know exactly what they're signing up for.
Actually, no, Sidney Arthur Rosenberg, typical Zionist Jew who would never put on a uniform to defend this country because he believes he's above the average person. He believes he's above everybody because, again, he's chosen. Here's what you have to understand about serving in the U.S. military. And I came very close to doing it, very close. There is a thing called the conscientious objector. When you are defending this country against enemies, both foreign and domestic, you are doing it with full knowledge of the circumstances of which you are being called in to do. What is being asked, potentially, and Jen and I are already of the mind that it's already been done and is being done. When you are asking our servicemen and women to go into enemy territory in terrain that we do not understand, that we have never been through, that isn't just being protected by the Iranian military. It's being backed by China. It's being backed by Russia, possibly even Turkey, definitely the Lebanese. They're walking into an ambush. They're going to be mass murdered. This isn't a war that can be won on the ground. You thought Iraq was devastating? You thought Afghanistan was devastating? That's a walk in the park compared to what this will be, and probably already is. Little Ben talking about Karg Island. We're going to take Karg Island. Why don't you try to take it? Your life is not worth more than theirs. In fact, their life is worth more than yours because they actually produce something of value. They are guardians at the gate. You are a fucking blowhard with a microphone, and Sid Rosenberg is an even bigger one. Look, this is what they sign up for. Everyone's tough until shit gets real. And the second shit gets real, then you find out who the real tough guys are. And Sid Rosenberg, for all his boasting and blowharded attitude, is not that tough. Because he'd shit his pants if he ever stared down the barrel of a fucking gun. And he knows it. That's why he's overcompensating. Kudos to this lady for pushing back on him. I don't know her name. I don't really care. It's fucking Fox News, faux news. But pushback is appreciated here.
This is war. We don't want to see anybody die, but this is war. A war that started 47 years ago that they started. So, yes, I know that the moral ground is to say, I don't want our kids.
We overthrew their democratically elected government in 1953. We did it. That's when it started. You lying fuck.
To die. I feel the same way. But we got to win. Now, we can win maybe without putting boots on the ground. Maybe we can. I don't know. I'm not Jack Keane. I don't have that type of information. If we can do that, great. But if at some point it requires putting some boots on the ground to win this war, that's why they signed up. To fight for this country, to fight.
That is not why they signed up, you son of a bitch. Most people sign up for the military because it's their only way out of the hell that they're living in. If you sign up for the armed forces, there's a lot of benefits that come with it. There's a salary, there's a housing stipend, there's travel, job opportunities, healthcare, education. This is how they get you in a lot of different parts of the country. It is true. If you are desperate and you're trying to survive in this world, you can join the military. And chances are, it's one of the ways to get out of a bad predicament, financially, socially, etc. So when you say that the reason that somebody signs up for the military is to go fight in a war that they will likely die in, armed combat is the last line of defense in the military. Now, obviously, a lot of things have changed since 9/11. We know that. Nobody spewed more bullshit about 9/11 than this guy. And how do I know? Because I used to listen to him on the radio. He's either on WOR or WABC, AM radio in New York, speaking to the most conservative Zionist living on the North Shore of Long Island or in Southern Connecticut or North Jersey or Staten Island. That's who he preaches to. And you know what those areas have in common? Not a lot of military members. So it's easy. It's easy to appeal to that crowd. It's easy to talk with a major chip on your shoulder. It's always acceptable from the chosen's perspective to spill the blood of other innocents for their comfort.
For President Trump and to rid the world of evil animals like the Iranian regime.
Can I just ask, what does victory look like to you? Are you serious? You really want just until they're annihilated and there's a regime change? Is that final for you?
That's it. I mean, look, I want to get the dust. I want to open the strait. All that's important. But if you leave these animals in power, You are destined. Look, what is the definition of insanity? Do the same thing over and over and again, expect different results. If you leave the IRGC in power, we're going to have the same issues in 5 years, in 10 years, when the great President Trump, excuse me, is gone. So we have no choice at this point but to go in there. And yes, regime change. I know it's two dirty words. That's part of winning the war ultimately. Yes.
The loudest supporters of war are always those that will never have to fight in it themselves. And that's the problem. And that's been the problem for a long time. And this is also what conscientious objection comes from. You know, I always said, if we were faced with actual turmoil here at home and we had to defend our land, would I fight? Yes. That was the biggest reason that I was in the precipice of actually dropping out of college and joining the military when I was 18, because it was right after 9/11. Now, obviously, in retrospect, I made the right decision, knowing what I know now. However, if this was a world in which that actually existed, if there was a Red Dawn situation that actually existed here in the United States, that would be a different story. We appreciate your service, brother. And your story is one of many stories that are out there about why people get into the service in the first place. This fuck wants you to believe that people join the military because they have a death wish. That's the reason you think people join. With Ben Shapiro, the overcompensation comes from a lack of masculinity. In Sid Rosenberg's case, he may instill an image of masculinity because of his enhanced muscles. But in reality, he's just as big a coward as Shapiro is. And damn them all for being able to get away with this. But hopefully, and this is the end game for their ideology, eventually they will not be able to get away with this. The tables will eventually turn, and we will win the day. But let's conclude this segment on a positive note, because I finally figured out why Ben Shapiro looks the way he does.
The new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet, the pottery that grows. It's fun and easy.